The Young and the Restless Spoilers, Friday's full episodes, April 25, 2025. In a quiet corner of Genoa City, the hum of life was momentarily replaced with the soft, tentative strumming of guitar strings and the quiet conversation of two people who had found in each other a reprieve from their brokenness. Daniel Romalotti sat beside Tessa Porter inside Crimson Lights, the walls around them humming with the aroma of coffee and the warmth of something resembling home. It had been an unexpected pairing, one born not of romance, but of restlessness, of shared silence, of needing to create when everything else seemed to fall apart. Earlier that day, Tessa had warned him, not with cynicism, but with the kind of wisdom that only someone who had lived through loss could offer. Learning something new can be exciting, she told him gently as they stood outside the coffee house with their guitars slung over their shoulders, but the guitar, it can break your heart. Daniel looked at her, no trace of irony in his voice. That's what I need, he said. And just like that, the lesson began. They returned to Crimson Lights, guitars in hand, settling into the back corner like musicians from a forgotten folk duo. Tessa's fingers moved with ease as she demonstrated the first position, the delicate arc of the thumb, the strength of pressure needed on the frets, the instinct to listen rather than force. Daniel watched her with rapt attention, soaking in each instruction. There was a quiet intimacy in the exchange, but not the kind that called for seduction, it was the kind that allowed broken people to breathe in rhythm together. It's not about sounding perfect, she said, guiding his fingers along the neck of the instrument. It's about letting the notes speak for you when you don't have the words. Daniel smiled, nodding. Then I've got a lot to say. The moment hung there, soft, meaningful, before dissolving into laughter as Daniel flubbed a chord, and Tessa swatted his shoulder playfully. They didn't need anything more than this. Not yet. Across town, the mood was far less harmonious. At Society, Sally Spectra sipped her drink and leaned closer to Audra Charles, her voice low but edged with frustration. I'm telling you, I think Phyllis is manipulating Billy, she said. She's using his sympathy, his guilt, whatever's left of it, to make her way back in. And Billy's just letting it happen. Audra raised an eyebrow, stirring her cocktail. Why does Phyllis scare you so much? She doesn't scare me, Sally shot back. She irritates me. She causes chaos everywhere she goes. You know it, I know it. She can't enter a room without leaving it worse than she found it. Audra smirked. Or maybe you're wondering if Phyllis wants more than just Billy's help. Maybe she wants Billy. Sally scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Billy's not that stupid. You sure? Audra asked innocently. Because Phyllis is a lot of things, manipulative, yes, but she's also strategic. If she wanted Billy again, I think she'd know exactly how to play it. Sally's jaw tensed. Billy wouldn't fall for it. Not this time. You say that, Audra replied, her tone flat, but he's always been drawn to damaged women who pretend they don't need fixing. That's his type. Maybe that includes Phyllis. At that moment, Holden Novak approached their table, giving both women a charming smile. Ladies, he greeted smoothly. But before Sally could respond, Audra rolled her eyes and muttered, Not now, Holden. He paused, clearly hurt, then turned and walked away without another word. Sally shook her head. You didn't have to be so harsh. Audra sipped her drink. He's used to it. Doesn't make it right, Sally said. You don't have to rip people apart just because they annoy you. Audra's eyes narrowed. Tell that to Phyllis. Meanwhile, at Billy Abbott's place, the energy was draining and familiar. Phyllis Summers had arrived with yet another passive-aggressive update about Daniel and Abbott communications. They talked business for the fourth time that week, circling the same arguments, the same disappointments, the same tired pleas. Daniel's not committed, Billy said flatly, pouring himself a drink. And the sooner you accept that, the better for all of us. Phyllis frowned. You're giving up on him? No, Billy replied. But I'm not going to let you guilt me into dragging him into a war he doesn't want to fight. Before Phyllis could argue, the door opened and Sally entered, catching just enough of the conversation to understand. You told her, she asked. Billy nodded. I told her if she keeps pushing Daniel into this, she'll lose both of us. I'm not playing referee anymore. Phyllis's mouth tightened. I'm just trying to give him a purpose. Maybe he needs to find it on his own, Sally said gently. Not through your expectations. Not through ours. There was silence, the kind that stretched with tension but not threat. Just three people standing in the ruins of what might have been a great idea, now fractured by too many agendas. But elsewhere, something else was forming. At Crimson Lights, Tessa and Daniel packed up their guitars, their fingers a little sore but their spirits lighter than when the day began. Tessa turned to him as they exited. You know, this isn't just about learning music. Daniel nodded. I know. It's about finding a reason to feel again. Exactly, she said. And though no promises were made, and no futures spoken of, something between them had quietly shifted. Not a romance. Not yet. But a beginning. The air inside Crimson Lights felt different now. Daniel returned the next morning, fingers still aching from the previous day's guitar lesson, but there was something else clinging to him. An emotional soreness. Tessa wasn't there yet, but he found himself drifting toward the corner where they had sat. It wasn't about romance. At least, that's what he told himself. But there had been something magnetic in the way she spoke, the gentleness of her touch on his fingers as she guided him through chord progressions, the sincerity in her voice when she said music could fill in the silence where words failed. He was no stranger to artistic muses, to finding clarity in chaos, but this was different. This wasn't a muse. This was a mirror. Tessa reflected back to him a version of himself he'd long forgotten existed, someone capable, present, creative. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was drowning. When she walked in, her guitar case slung over her back and her smile effortlessly bright, Daniel stood before he realized what he was doing. Hey, she said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Ready for round 2? He smiled. Only if you promise not to laugh when I screw up. She laughed anyway, warm and real. No promises. The lesson that followed wasn't just about finger placement. They talked. About family. About disappointment. About the way life derails your plans only to offer something unexpectedly better in its place. Sometimes, Tessa said, tuning her guitar, the worst thing that ever happens to you is the thing that saves your life. Daniel looked at her. You think I'll be saved by music? I think, she said carefully, you're already being saved by connection. He didn't answer, but the way he looked at her said enough. Across town, Audra's mood had soured. She had expected Sally to play the predictable role, jealous, insecure, easily baited by insinuations about Phyllis and Billy. But instead, Sally had come back with unexpected composure. Her words still echoed, you don't have to rip people apart just because they annoy you. It was a line that irritated Audra more than it should have. She didn't mind being seen as harsh, she counted on it. What she couldn't stand was being made to feel like her cruelty was transparent. Especially not by Sally Spectra, who had her own history of emotional detonations. And now, as she stood at her office window in Newman Tower, Audra began to rethink her next move. If Phyllis was really trying to angle Daniel into Abbott Communications, that meant one thing, she was trying to build influence. And Audra hated nothing more than someone playing a long game without her permission. So she called Billy. It was an innocent enough meeting, on the surface. Just coffee. Just to catch up. But Billy knew better. And Audra, to her credit, didn't waste time pretending she had no agenda. I'm just saying, she said, leaning back in her chair, if Phyllis is pushing Daniel into this project with you, you might want to ask yourself why. He's not committed. You said it yourself. So why push so hard? Billy looked at her, tired. Because she's his mother. And she thinks she knows what's best for him. Audra shrugged. Or maybe she's trying to position herself, again. Just keep your eyes open, Billy. That's all. Billy didn't respond, but the seed was planted. And Audra? She walked away knowing exactly how doubt worked. Plant it deep enough, water it just once, and it bloomed on its own. Back at Daniel's place, Phyllis knocked on the door, her patience worn thin. She wasn't angry, yet. But the isolation was beginning to grate on her. Billy was pulling away. Sally was clearly against her. And Daniel? He was drifting, somewhere between indecision and emotional escapism. She needed to anchor him. I don't understand what you're doing, she said the moment he opened the door. You're throwing away an opportunity. A real opportunity, Daniel. And for what? Guitar lessons and coffee dates? Daniel's eyes narrowed. This isn't about Tessa. No? Phyllis snapped. Then what is it about? You don't want the company. You don't want to build something real. You just want to feel again. That's not a business plan, Daniel. That's a breakdown. He stepped back, stunned. I'm not having a breakdown, Mom. I'm rebuilding. There's a difference. Not to the rest of the world, she muttered. And if you keep floating like this, you'll lose everything before you even decide what you want. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, he realized something important. His mother would never see his healing as strength. She only understood control. And for the first time, Daniel wasn't willing to give her that. At Nate Hastings' house, the late afternoon sun cast a soft glow through the windows, cutting through the stillness of a conversation that would soon shift the course of several lives. Nate stood in the center of the room with a manila folder in hand, his tone steady, professional, but layered with something gentler as he turned toward Amy and Damien Kane. I have an update, he said. Amy, seated beside Damien, straightened, her heart thudding despite her efforts to remain calm. Dr. Kelly was very pleased with the updated information you've provided, Nate continued. She thinks you're an ideal candidate for a specialized treatment program at a cancer center in Boston. The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with hope but also uncertainty. Amy blinked, trying to absorb it. I'm not sure what that means, she said softly. Nate stepped closer. It means you have a chance, Amy. A real one. There was a long silence before she whispered, then call her. Tell her I'll do it. Nate gave a small, encouraging nod. I will. But Amy, they want you in Boston tonight. Her eyes widened. Tonight? The shift from emotional resolution to logistical panic was immediate. How long would I have to be there, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That depends, Nate answered. It could be a few weeks. Could be longer. It depends on how your body responds. Damien squeezed her hand, offering a reassuring smile. Then you should go, he said firmly. We'll figure everything out from there. I'll come visit as often as I can. I promise. Amy turned to him, unsure. Come visit? You're not coming with me? Before Damien could respond, Nate raised an eyebrow, cutting in with a tone that was friendly but laced with subtext. Are you planning to go to Boston, Damien? It wasn't a challenge, but it wasn't casual either. Damien hesitated. I guess I should go start packing, Amy said quickly, breaking the tension. Damien turned to her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Don't worry. I'll book a private flight. Nate, who was still standing nearby, tilted his head. Any room for one more? Damien glanced at him, a flicker of something unreadable passing between them. Sure, he said after a moment, though his voice lacked conviction. Amy looked between the two men but said nothing. A few minutes later, as the conversation turned to packing and logistics, the front door opened and Audra Charles entered, her expression bright with curiosity. "I heard the news," she said. "This is amazing." Nate turned toward her. "I'm going to Boston with them. Just for a little while. I want to make sure Amy's settled in." Audra nodded, then stepped closer. "And you'll be back soon?" "Yes," Nate said simply. "This isn't permanent." Later that night, after Nate had left to prepare for the flight, Audra stayed behind, pretending to help Diane organize paperwork for Amy's travel. But the moment she was alone, she pulled out her phone, her tone shifting from sympathetic to businesslike in an instant. "Victor," she said coolly when the line picked up. "Is the paperwork for my new company ready to sign yet?" A pause. Then a smile. "I'm eager to get started." It was a simple sentence, but one that carried the weight of ambition, deception, and something darker. Because while Amy's life was about to change in Boston, Audra's empire was beginning to take root in Genoa City. And if Victor Newman was placing bets on who would carry the future of Newman's strategy, Audra was already several moves ahead. Meanwhile, Amy stood in her bedroom, staring at the open suitcase on her bed. Clothes were scattered around the room, untouched. Her hands shook slightly as she held a sweater, then folded it and placed it inside. Damien stood in the doorway watching her. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "It's all happening so fast." He stepped forward, wrapping his arms around her. "This is the right move. We both know that. But it's not just the treatment," she whispered. "It's everything. It's leaving. It's the unknown. It's temporary," he said. "You'll come back stronger. Healthier. And I'll be right here when you do." But deep down, neither of them truly knew what lay ahead. And even deeper still, both Nate and Damien were keeping secrets of their own. Because somewhere beneath the surface of compassion and support were hidden layers of unspoken tension, questions of loyalty, and the quiet knowledge that when Amy returned, if she returned, nothing would be the same.